What if I told you that one of the most diverse, most chaotic, most underestimated food cities in America has been quietly feeding the world for over a century? Not New York, not LA, not New Orleans. Though New Orleans is going to come up. I'm talking about Houston, Texas. A city built on oil money and immigrant hustle, sitting at the intersection of the American South, Mexico, Southeast Asia, and the Gulf Coast. And almost none of its greatest food inventions look like they were supposed to happen. A widow with 5 kids and a failing tortilla factory. A Lebanese man who couldn't sell hummus. A donut recipe engineered for humidity. A Vietnamese refugee who put lemongrass in a Cajun boil and accidentally created a genre. 10 foods, one sprawling, sweaty, beautiful city. Welcome to First Taste. Let's decode this. Food 1. The fajita. We start where we have to start. The fajita. It's 1973. Ninfa Rodriguez Lorenzo is a widow with 5 children and a tortilla factory that's bleeding money on Navigation Boulevard in Houston's East End. She's been turned down by every bank she approached for a loan. She mortgages her home, borrows money from a friend in Mexico City, and sets up 10 tables and 40 chairs in the front half of her factory. The menu is simple. Grilled skirt steak, one of the toughest, cheapest cuts on the animal, folded into handmade flour tortillas. She called it tacos al carbon. On the first day alone, she sold 250 of them. Word spread fast. Downtown lawyers started making the trip to the East End on their lunch breaks. Within 3 years, Mama Ninfa opened a second location. By 1980, she had 13 restaurants across Texas. Here's what's important. Mama Ninfa didn't invent the idea of grilling skirt steak. Vaqueros had been cooking this cut over open fires for generations. What she did was introduce it to Houston, present it on a sizzling platter with grilled onions, red and green salsas she invented herself, and handmade tortillas still hot from the press. She made it a restaurant dish. She made it a ritual. By 2001, nearly every Tex-Mex restaurant in Houston served some version of her fajitas. Her own daughter Phyllis put it plainly. "We didn't invent the fajita. My mother introduced it in Houston." Today, the sizzling platter is on menus from Tokyo to London. It started at a 10-table taco stand run by a woman who couldn't get a bank loan. Food 2. The Viet Cajun crawfish. This one didn't come from one person. It came from an entire community. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, tens of thousands of Vietnamese refugees arrived in the United States. Many ended up along the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, and Southeast Texas, because the climate reminded them of home, and because the water meant work. Vietnamese fishermen found jobs in the Gulf. They settled in Houston's Midtown and Chinatown districts. And then they discovered crawfish. Cajun crawfish had been a Gulf Coast tradition for generations. You boil them in seasoned water, cayenne, salt, pepper, garlic, dump them on a table covered in newspaper, and eat with your hands. The Vietnamese community loved them. But they also couldn't help tinkering. Instead of just seasoning the water, they added a second step. After boiling, they tossed the crawfish in a butter-based sauce loaded with garlic, lemongrass, ginger, and scallions. The result was something the original recipe had never been. Richer, more aromatic, layered in a way that somehow felt both Cajun and completely its own. By the early 2000s, Viet Cajun crawfish joints were appearing all over Houston's Chinatown district. Food writer Andrea Nguyen noted that the Houston Chronicle was already writing about the phenomenon then. From Houston, the style spread to Southern California's Little Saigon, then to Vietnamese communities across the country. Even Louisiana's Viet Cajun restaurants, when they eventually appeared, reverse migrated from Houston. Food writer and director of the Southern Foodways Alliance John T. Edge called it a reflection of the dynamism of newly arrived Southerners. It's now a James Beard-recognized genre of American cuisine. And it started because a community of refugees looked at a crawfish boil and thought, we can make this better. Food 3. The Houston Poboy. You've heard of the New Orleans Poboy. You probably haven't heard of this one. It's 1962. Jalal Antone is the Louisiana-born son of Syrian and Lebanese immigrants. He set up a shop on Taft Street in Houston's 4th Ward called Antone's Import Company, and he has a problem. He wants to sell the food he knows, falafel, baba ganoush, hummus. His brother-in-law tells him to forget it. Houstonians aren't ready for that. Give them something familiar. So Antone takes the New Orleans Poboy, already an immigrant invention, and gives it a Houston spin. Ham, salami, provolone on French bread. Standard enough. But then he adds chow chow, a tangy orange-red pickled relish of cabbage, vinegar, sweet peppers, turmeric, and spice. Cold, never hot. Loaded with mayo. That's the Houston Po' Boy. The Houston Chronicle would later call it, in the city's food DNA, the Shipley Donuts of sandwiches. Through the 1970s and 80s, Antone's was everywhere. The shop spawned imitators across the city. A Lebanese immigrant had taken a New Orleans sandwich, filtered it through Middle Eastern sensibility, and created something that became a Houston civic institution. And quietly, almost nobody outside of Houston ever noticed. Food for Shipley Donuts. It's 1936. The Great Depression is winding down, but barely. Lawrence Shipley Sr. opens a wholesale bakery at 1417 Crockett Street in Houston and starts selling hand-cut glazed donuts for 5 cents a dozen. But here's the thing that made Shipley's different. Houston's heat and humidity destroy most donut glazes. They melt off. They turn sticky. Shipley developed a specific recipe engineered to hold its glaze in the Texas climate. The glaze stayed. The donuts stayed hot. Shipley's motto: when they bite into that hot donut, it will bring them back every time. He was right. By the mid-1940s, demand was so high, Shipley went retail. His wife Lily ran the bakery while Lawrence was out on delivery routes, with their son Lawrence Jr. on her knee. That son would eventually grow the company to over 190 locations across the South. Today, there are more than 350 Shipley locations across a dozen states. Houston has more Shipleys than most cities have donut shops of any kind. It is not a chain that Texans feel neutral about. It is a loyalty, a religion. An argument you have with someone from Krispy Kreme country. The glazed donut didn't start in Houston, but the donut engineered to survive Houston did. And that's close enough. Food 5. Condensed milk. This one is older than Houston itself, barely. Gale Borden Jr. arrived in Texas in 1829. He helped survey and lay out the street grids of both Galveston and Houston. He published the first newspaper in Texas. And then, haunted by a need to solve problems that hadn't been solved yet, he disappeared into a 2-decade obsession with preserving food. His first attempt was a meat biscuit, dehydrated beef pressed into a loaf. It won an award at the 1851 London World's Fair. It also tasted terrible, and he knew it. Borden moved on. By 1853, working from his base in Galveston and Houston, he cracked condensed milk, evaporating fresh milk under vacuum, adding sugar, sealing it in a can. The bacteria had no water to grow in. The milk lasted indefinitely without refrigeration. The Union Army adopted it during the Civil War. Sales exploded. Today, sweetened condensed milk is in desserts from dulce de leche to key lime pie to Thai iced tea. It's in pantries on every continent. The man who invented it helped plan the streets you drive on in Houston. Food 6, the Fajita Platter, as a presentation format. Wait, we already covered fajitas. So why is this here? Because the fajita and the fajita platter are 2 different inventions. Mama Ninfa's son Jack was working as a waiter in those early days on Navigation Boulevard. When the tacos al carbon started selling, Jack had an idea. Present them on a plate with grilled onions, already arranged, sizzling when it hits the table. It was theater. It was heat. It was presentation designed to make every head in the dining room turn when the dish passed by. That sizzling cast iron platter, the thing that makes the sound, creates the smoke, turns every restaurant into a spectacle the moment it comes out of the kitchen. That was a Houston invention inside the Houston invention. Ninfa made the food. Jack made the moment. Every time a server says, "Careful, the plate is hot," anywhere in the world, that's Navigation Boulevard, 1973. Food 7. Cookies and cream. Ice cream, mass-produced. Bluebell Creameries was founded in 1907 in Brenham, Texas, about 90 miles from Houston, as a small cooperative dairy. For most of its history, it made simple, excellent ice cream and barely left Texas. Then, in 1980, One of Bluebell's employees ate a cookies and cream ice cream at a parlor in Houston. Just someone's local experiment. Crushed Oreos folded into vanilla ice cream. The employee reported back. Bluebell reached out to Nabisco, negotiated the rights to use the Oreo name, and became the first company to mass-produce cookies and cream ice cream commercially. That flavor is now one of the most popular ice cream flavors in America. Bluebell didn't invent the concept, but they heard about it in Houston, they acted on it, and they put it in every grocery store in the country. Survival food became the identity, as always. Food 8. The Tex-Mex breakfast taco. This is going to upset some people in Austin. The breakfast taco as a cultural institution, scrambled eggs, cheese, potato, bacon, or chorizo, wrapped in a flour tortilla, eaten in the car at 7 a.m., did not originate in any single restaurant. But its popularization as a Houston phenomenon runs through the city's Mexican-American communities, its taqueria culture stretching back decades, and directly through Ninfas and the restaurants it inspired. Before Ninfas, the Tex-Mex norm was crispy tacos and combo plates smothered in brown gravy. Ninfa brought fresh tortillas, char-grilled meats, bright salsas. That shift, toward freshness, toward simplicity, toward the tortilla as the star, permeated Houston's taqueria culture and eventually defined what a morning taco looked and tasted like. Houston's tortilla infrastructure, the wholesale factories, the family operations, the corner shops grinding mesa at 5 a.m., made it possible for the breakfast taco to be everywhere, cheap, and never bad. That's a supply chain as much as a recipe, and Houston built it. Food 9. The Kalachi, Texas style. Czech immigrants arrived in Texas in the mid-1800s and brought with them a soft, fruit-filled pastry called the kolache. In Czechoslovakia, it was a sweet roll with a well of apricot or poppy seed filling in the center. It was delicate, careful, occasion food. Texas did what Texas does. It filled it with sausage. The Texas kolache, a soft, slightly sweet dough wrapped around a sausage link, sometimes with jalapenos and cheese, is technically called a klobasnik. Texans have never cared about the distinction. In Houston, Shipley Donuts added kolaches to their menu and turned them into a staple of the morning drive-through line. Now you can get them at gas stations, donut shops, and dedicated kolache chains across the city. Czech bakers in Central Texas will tell you Texas-style kolaches aren't real kolaches. Houstonians will tell you to order another one. The sausage version exists because someone looked at a sweet pastry and thought, what if we put meat in it? That question has powered Houston's food culture for 200 years. Food 10. The Ninfirita. You didn't think we'd leave without a drink. When Ninfa Lorenzo opened her 10-table restaurant on Navigation in 1973, she didn't just serve food. She made a margarita. But not the margarita you know from a chain restaurant. A thin, sour, frozen thing poured from a machine. The Ninfirita was made with fresh squeezed lime, quality tequila, and served with a salted rim that actually tasted like salt, not the dusty powder on a styrofoam cup. The Ninfirita became as famous as the fajitas. People drove across Houston for it. It became the house drink of a restaurant that defined what Houston Tex-Mex could be. Every Tex-Mex restaurant in the city that takes its drinks seriously traces some line of influence back to that original margarita on Navigation Boulevard. Mama Ninfa appears twice on this list because one woman, running from a failing tortilla factory, invented more Houston food culture in a single year than most cities manage in a century. 10 dishes, 10 stories. One city that never stopped making something out of what it had. A widow with no credit invented the dish that defines an entire cuisine. Refugees from a war on the other side of the world took a Louisiana crawfish boil, added lemongrass and butter, and created a new genre of American cooking. A Lebanese immigrant who couldn't sell hummus invented Houston's signature sandwich. A man who helped draw the streets of this city invented condensed milk and changed how humans store food. Houston is not a food city that announces itself. It doesn't have the mythology of New Orleans or the glamour of New York. It sits in the heat and the humidity, and it works, and it feeds people, and it does not particularly care if you're paying attention. You should be paying attention. Stay curious.